Imagine you're walking through an ordinary field in Mexico. You see dirt, grass, and scrubby trees. Nothing special. But beneath your feet lies one of the greatest constructions in human history. Larger than the Egyptian pyramids, built 3,000 years ago. And no one had ever seen it until 2020. This is not a story about what we knew about the Maya. This is a story about what we just discovered, about how one of the world's greatest civilizations began with a mystery even archaeologists couldn't believe. In 2019, Professor Takeshi Inomata from the University of Arizona had a problem. He had spent 30 years studying the Maya, 30 years digging in the jungle, searching for clues. And he knew one thing for certain. Maya civilization developed slowly, over time. They started with small villages around 1000 BC. Then gradually, over centuries, they built larger cities. That's what every textbook said. That's what everyone believed. But Takeshi had a hunch. Something was wrong with the story, and his hunch was about to shatter 100 years of science. Takeshi decided to try a new technology. It was called LiDAR. LiDAR works like this. An airplane flies over the jungle, shooting millions of laser beams to the ground. These lasers slip through gaps between the leaves, hit the ground, and bounce back. A computer then creates a 3D map of everything underneath the canopy. It's like being able to see through the jungle. Takeshi chose an area in the state of Tabasco, Mexico, a place called Aguada Fenix. No one had ever studied the area closely. It looked like ordinary farmland. The plane went up. The lasers began to scan. And when the data came back, Takeshi remembers, "When I first saw the image, I thought the machine was broken. I thought there was a mistake. Because on the screen, he saw a massive rectangle, perfectly straight, perfectly symmetrical, 1.5 miles long, 400 meters wide, larger than 85 football fields. There's something very big here," Takeshi said. A major construction that nobody had ever known. Daniela Triaden, Takeshi's colleague, came to see it with her own eyes. She walked onto what they thought was a natural hill. But as she looked around, she realized, this isn't a hill. Everything we're standing on, she said, everything we're seeing is artificial. When you walk on the surface, it looks like a natural landscape. But it's not. Humans built all of it. They had just found a massive platform built entirely by hand, 15 meters tall, made of 4 million cubic meters of earth. To put that in perspective, that's more than the Great Pyramid of Giza. But the biggest question remained unanswered. Who built it? And more importantly, when? The team now had a serious problem. There was no writing here, no text, no dates. To know when this structure was built, they needed to find something that could be dated. They needed charcoal, burned wood from ancient times. But finding charcoal inside a massive structure like this was like finding a needle in a haystack. Takeshi and his team started digging, layer by layer of earth. They dug deep into the center of the platform. 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters. The temperature was near 40 degrees Celsius. The humidity was close to 90%. The work was backbreaking, and for weeks, they found nothing. The budget was starting to run out. Time was short. Claudia Alvarado, one of the archaeologists, remembers, "We started to think maybe we weren't going to find anything at all." Then one day, deep inside the platform, a worker shouted, Carbon. Charcoal. A tiny black fragment, almost crumbling to the touch. This was the key piece of the puzzle. This single piece of charcoal was about to change everything we knew about the Maya. Forever. The team sent the charcoal samples to the laboratory. They use a method called radiocarbon dating. It measures the ratio of radioactive carbon to stable carbon in the sample. When a living thing dies, the radioactive carbon in its body starts to decay at a predictable rate. By measuring how much radioactive carbon is left, scientists can tell exactly how long ago the object died. The first sample they sent was contaminated, unusable. The second sample was too small for accurate analysis. This is normal in archaeology. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But they had one final sample from the deepest core of the platform. They waited for the results for weeks, and when it arrived, everyone fell silent. 1100 BC. Daniela remembers. I had to check 3 times. I couldn't believe it. This couldn't be right. But they sent more samples from different parts of the structure, and they all came back with the same result. Aguada Fenix was started around 1100 BC, and people kept building there until around 800 BC. Let me explain why this matters so much. According to every textbook, the Maya began building large cities around 400 or 500 BC. But Aguada Fenix is older than that, by 700 years. It's larger than any known Maya structure. And it was built before we thought the Maya even existed as a civilization. Takeshi said, "This is certainly the most important discovery of my career. It has a great significance for our understanding of the development of Maya civilization." But here's the truly shocking part. If the Maya didn't exist, then who built it? The team now faced a bigger puzzle. They knew what the structure was. They knew when, but they didn't know who or why. To understand this, they needed to look at how it was constructed. And here, they discovered something completely unexpected. As they dug into the platform, they saw different layers of colored earth. Red dirt, white dirt, green dirt, black dirt. Maria Belén Mendez, an archaeologist, said, "I had never seen this kind of organized and systematic layering of soil." When they looked closer, they saw a pattern. The builders had created tens of thousands of small squares, each one about 1 to 2 meters wide and 1 meter deep. They built small stone walls to separate these squares. Then they filled each square with differently colored earth. It looked like a giant chessboard. But why? Why do the extra work? Then Daniela realized. Each one of these cells represented a group of people, she said. And they had their own preference in color. This was the part of the construction that they contributed. Think about that for a second. Different groups of people came here, maybe from different villages, and each group filled in their own cell with the type of dirt they chose. But here's the truly amazing part. Once it was finished, they covered the whole colorful chessboard with a thick layer of white earth. No one could see it. Takeshi explains, "That tells us that it was not just the final product that was important. The way they did it must have had a symbolic and ritualistic meaning for those people. This wasn't an ordinary construction project. This was something sacred, something communal. And what they were about to find next would prove that this was more than a construction. This is where everything began." Takeshi went back to the LiDAR data. He looked at the 3D images of Aguada Fenix from above, and he noticed something strange. Off the main platform, there was a smaller platform extending out. And on that platform, two pyramid-shaped mounds, one to the west, one to the east, perfectly aligned with each other. Takeshi walked to the top of the west mound. It's obscured by trees today, but 3,000 years ago, it must have been clear. From this summit, he looked east, where the second mound stood, and suddenly, he understood. This is an astronomical complex, he said. An E-group. What is an E-group? It's a way the Maya measured time by watching the sun. If you stood on the western mound and looked east, you would see the sun rise at different spots during the year. On one day, it would rise on the far left of the eastern mound. On another day, it would rise on the far right. And by tracking these positions, the ancient Maya could calculate the exact date of the year. Takeshi measured the angles. The sun rises in this direction on February 24th, he explained. Then it comes back and rises in this direction on October 17th. The time between October 17th and February 24th is 130 days. That's a very important number. Why? Because 130 days is half of the Maya's 260-day calendar. The Maya calendar was not like ours. They had a sacred calendar called the Sacred Round. It was 260 days long. 260 is made by combining the numbers 1 through 13 with 20 different day names. David Stewart, a Maya expert, explains. We have 20 digits, right? 10 fingers and 10 toes. So the number 20 comes directly from the human body. Their universe was a reflection in some ways of the human body. Francisco Estrada Belli, another archaeologist, adds, we think these rituals were certainly for the sun, but also related to the agricultural seasons for corn. It's a whole complex that speaks of rituals related to agriculture, the organization of the cosmos, and time in the calendar. Throughout ancient Maya history, astronomical complexes were central to the ceremonial sites they built. And Aguada Fenix is the oldest such complex in the entire Maya region. What does this mean? It means Aguada Fenix was an open-air temple, a giant holy place, a gathering place, a pilgrimage site that hosted massive ceremonies, just like the Maya would do at the height of their civilization. 4 giant ramps lead up to the platform, each one 120 meters long and 50 meters wide. Daniela explains, here you can have 10 people walking side by side going up this ramp. And we think the north portion and the south portion, this is how people, maybe ritually, access the big platforms. The 560,000 square meters of the platform allowed for a huge number of people to congregate. If you just look at the size of it, Daniela says, it could hold thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. But who were these people? And how could they organize such a massive project if they weren't even living here? The team searched for evidence of a city. If tens of thousands of people built this, surely they must have lived somewhere nearby, right? But they found no houses, no streets, no markets. There's no evidence that these people were living at Aguada Fenix in a city. Takeshi said, so what was happening? There were many different types of people gathering here, he explained. Some of them were more mobile, coming from distant places, and some of them might have been ritual specialists who mainly did the sun observation, organizing the ceremony. In other words, Aguada Fenix wasn't a city. It was more like a massive church. People traveled here to gather, to worship, to build together. Then they returned to their villages. This was a revolutionary idea. Most archaeologists believe that large constructions require large cities. They believed you needed a powerful government and powerful leaders to organize the work. But Aguada Fenix suggested something else. It suggested that groups of people, maybe just beginning to settle down, could come together and create something extraordinary. Not because a king forced them to, but because they believed in it. Then, on the northeast side of the platform, they found a clue about one of these people, a skeleton, buried 3,000 years ago. And this skeleton was about to tell us a story of a life no one had ever heard. They found him squatting, his knees pulled up to his chest, his hands folded. A man, adult, dead in his 30s or 40s. Takeshi and his team meticulously studied every part of the skeleton. They looked at the patterns on the bones, the grooves and indentations that indicate how muscles were used. He has some skeletal patterns that suggest that he did a lot of heavy physical work, Takeshi explained, including carrying heavy loads, using a tump line, which is a band put on the forehead, and then carrying heavy loads at the back. This is how the Maya carried heavy items for thousands of years. A band of cloth wrapped around the forehead, connecting to a basket or sack on the back. The entire weight rests on the neck and spine. It is extremely hard work. One possibility, Takeshi said, is that he was one of the workers who built the platform. They also analyzed his teeth. Teeth are like a life record. They tell you what a person ate. This person consumed a relatively good amount of maize, Takeshi said. This is important. Before 1100 BC, most people in this region were hunter-gatherers. They moved seasonally, following game and wild fruits. But this man ate corn. Corn is cultivated. It requires you to stay in one place. So some people might have adopted a more sedentary lifestyle with more consumption of maize, Takeshi said. So we are seeing a change in their lifestyle. This was the moment of transition. Before 1100 BC, the people here were nomadic. They didn't build permanent homes. But now, they were starting to settle. They were planting corn. They were building. And perhaps it was the very process of building Aguada Fenix that drove this change. Takeshi explains. Often people think that society develops, and then that creates the construction. That's partially true. But another important aspect is that this kind of construction project creates the society. And that is what happened here. Through the process of the construction project, they had to develop a new form of social organization, a new form of division of labor. That led to the later Maya society. Think about it. Aguada Fenix was not built by the Maya. It was not the result of Maya civilization. It was the cause of Maya civilization. But the story doesn't end here, because they were about to find the thing that would prove that this idea spread everywhere. If Aguada Fenix truly was the starting point of Maya civilization, there had to be proof. There had to be a trace that the ideas from here had spread. Daniela started studying the pottery found at Aguada Fenix. Pottery is critical in archaeology. It's like a cultural fingerprint. Every group of people has its own style. They use different clays. They paint different patterns. When Daniela pieced the fragments together, she noticed something. The Aguada Fenix pottery looks like the Ceibal pottery, she said. Ceibal is an ancient Maya city in Guatemala, 180 kilometers away. It is connected to Aguada Fenix by the Usumacinta River and its tributaries. Melissa Burham, an archaeologist who studies Ceibal, explained what they had found there. The most surprising thing about Ceibal itself is that the area we're standing on right here is actually on a very large platform. Before, we thought this was just a natural elevation. We didn't realize that it was actually very square. It's definitely humanly modified to look like a square shape, which is similar in some ways to Aguada Fenix. And as they dug deeper at Ceibal, they found an ancient structure, an astronomical complex, an E-group, exactly like the one at Aguada Fenix. It was dated to around 950 BC, just 100 years after Aguada Fenix was started. We have caches of stone axes along the central axis here, Melissa said, which is very, very similar to what we see at Aguada Fenix. The connection was clear, but they needed more direct proof. And they were about to find it, beneath the soil of Ceibal. In a cleared area in the jungle at Ceibal, Melissa and her team began digging. They were looking for any trace of the earliest people who lived here. A half-meter down, they found something. Bones.
This is
Not
an
just one
unprecedented find.
But 13 skeletons. Men, women, and children, carefully buried next to each other. It's like this place was specifically used as a cemetery,
This
as
is
a
an
burial
unprecedented
place,
find.
Melissa explained. This is also the earliest specialized cemetery we know of in Mesoamerica. This was a huge find. But the big question was, where did these people come from? They sent teeth from the skeletons to Guatemala City for analysis. Juan Manuel Palomo, a bone expert, began the work. He used a technique called strontium isotope analysis. Strontium is an element found in the soil and water. Every region has a different strontium signature. When you eat and drink, strontium from that region gets absorbed into your teeth and bones. This means scientists can look at someone's tooth and tell exactly where they grew up. Juan Manuel started with the first skeleton. This individual was born in the Ceibal region, he said. And when we look at the data from his third molar, it falls perfectly within the local region of Ceibal. So this individual spent his early adult years, and died obviously, in the Ceibal region. He was a local. But then he tested 3 other skeletons, and he saw something different. For these individuals, the strontium isotopes suggest they were migrants. These people were not born in Ceibal. They came from somewhere else. Juan Manuel looked closer at the data. He compared it to samples from many different regions, and he found a match. The strontium signature matched the Tabasco region, the Aguada Fenix region. Melissa explained their hypothesis. Essentially, what happened when the E-group was created, around 950 BC, a group of people may have introduced these ideas from the Aguada Fenix region about ritual, about cosmology. Do you see what this means? People didn't just build Aguada Fenix. They moved. They traveled. They carried their ideas to new places. And one of those places was Ceibal. Ceibal was built using the same template as Aguada Fenix, the same astronomical complex, the same sacred calendar. And Ceibal didn't just last a short time. It lasted 2,000 years, from 950 BC until after the end of the Maya Classic period. This is the moment. This is when we can say, the Maya started here. Not in Ceibal, not in any great city, but at Aguada Fenix, a place where people came together to build, a place where they learned to organize, to work in large teams, to track time by the sun, a place where they developed the 260-day calendar that would shape Maya culture for 3,000 years. Daniela put it best. The whole research is basically about when did the Maya become what we recognize as the Maya? And when did this happen, and how did this happen? And Ceibal, we have an E-group in 950, and nobody has a problem calling these people the ancestors of the Maya. We just happen to be 180 kilometers to the west of it. But if I look at the materiality of what's going on, I have no problem putting these people in the same kind of cultural sphere. Francisco Estrada Belli added, "It pushes back the beginning date. We can say that Maya civilization even started around 1100 BC. I think we need more evidence to say that, but it certainly looks promising." David Stewart, who has spent his life studying the Maya, said something profound. Aguada Fenix turns out to be Maya at their most monumental. So it turns upside down everything we thought was true. It turns upside down the idea that civilization is a gradual growth from zero. But there was one final mystery, one final connection that no one expected. Aguada Fenix, the monumental structure built by pre-Maya peoples, was not the first massive construction project in the region. 400 years before its construction began, the Olmec civilization flourished to the west at the city of San Lorenzo in the state of Veracruz, Mexico. San Lorenzo is considered one of the world's first capitals. Similar to Aguada Fenix, San Lorenzo was built on a giant artificial earth platform, standing 70 meters above the plain, and estimated to have required between 14 and 18 million hours of labor. Professor Takeshi Inomata studied the LiDAR data of San Lorenzo and noticed a striking similarity in the layout. Both structures feature a very large artificial platform with approximately 20 side platforms and a rectangular plaza space. Both likely had 2 access ways from the south. This similarity suggests that the builders of Aguada Fenix learned from the architectural format originally developed at San Lorenzo. Despite this architectural inheritance, the social organization of the two cultures was completely different. At San Lorenzo, archaeologists found massive colossal heads carved from basalt rock, weighing tons, which are believed to represent Olmec leaders. The cost and effort of transporting the stone from over 60 kilometers away implied that a powerful leader financed and used them to legitimize centralized power. Olmec society was highly organized with powerful leaders. Conversely, at Aguada Fenix, archaeologists Takeshi and Daniela Triadin searched for evidence of kings, elite classes, or centralized power, but found nothing. They only found the earliest complete stone statue in the later Maya area, which was a sculpture of a white-lipped peccary. Daniela noted that it was a naturalistic representation of an animal, very different from Olmec sculpture, which emphasized the representation of powerful people. Takeshi concluded, "That seems to represent a very different concept." This was a groundbreaking discovery. The builders of Aguada Fenix adopted the architectural idea from the Olmec, but they rejected their social system. They did not want kings or elites to control them. Instead, they created a new model, a society where different groups of people could gather to work together out of shared belief, not coercion. The discovery of Aguada Fenix answered the big question. How did the Maya become one of the world's greatest civilizations? They did not start with kings, large cities, centralized power. They began with an idea, the idea of communal unity. Aguada Fenix was a massive ceremonial center where people from different, newly settling communities gathered. It was the very process of building this monumental work that compelled them to develop new forms of social organization, division of labor, and a system for tracking time, such as observing the sun and the 260-day calendar. In other words, Aguada Fenix was not the result of Maya civilization, but the cause that propelled it. These ideas spread from Aguada Fenix to Ceibal, 180 kilometers away, and from there to hundreds of other cities. Each generation built upon this foundation, adding writing, art, mathematics, and astronomy, until they created their brilliant civilization around 250 to 900 AD. As David Stewart concludes, Aguada Fenix turns out to be Maya at their most monumental. It turns upside down everything we thought was true. The lesson from Aguada Fenix is that the most important discoveries, the deepest truths, are sometimes hidden right in front of us. LiDAR data has revealed that Aguada Fenix is not alone. There are at least 15 other similar structures still unexcavated in the region, and the story of the origin of the Maya civilization is still unfolding. Today, Aguada Fenix is protected. It's recognized as a National Heritage Site. But the LiDAR data revealed something else incredible. There are at least 15 other similar structures in the region, still unexcavated, still waiting to be discovered. Each one of them could tell a different story. Each one of them could reveal more secrets about how the Maya became the Maya. The story of the origin of Maya civilization is only just beginning. And if you have a question, any question, about the Maya, about Aguada Fenix, or about any other ancient civilization, write it down in the comments section right now. Because your questions are what drive our next videos. And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this story. It helps more people find amazing mysteries like this one. It's about a discovery even older than Aguada Fenix, even more inexplicable. Because remember, the most extraordinary things in the world are often hidden right in front of us. We just need to know how to look, and we'll keep helping you see them. See you in the next video.